Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is the head coach of Duke basketball, Jon. I am sorry, Jon Scheyer joining us. I am sorry, I can't make it out to those Thursdays because I got to prep for the show. Gilio and I got to prep for the show. But I saw from Aaron Beard that everybody was rocking their baseball hats. I had to wear my Marlins hat today, man. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just telling you, it's a cheap shot if you ask me, because Moises Alou, it's bringing flashbacks to what happened in what was it, the
Hey,
National
man,
League Finals.
it's not like I'm wearing a Chicago White Sox hat after a game, At least I'm not doing that.
Exactly. I got payback for those guys. Don't worry. And
Fair
for
enough.
and you're
Fair
included.
enough. Fair enough. Well, it's funny. I actually this was a jokey way to kind of start this conversation. And Jon Scheyer joining us, head coach at Duke, ahead of this weekend's game against Virginia Tech. Look, you're kind of getting your bearings. You got all these other things that are going on to be, this rookie season as head coach at Duke. But you're also trying to kind of implement your own things as a Duke head coach. So how have you, as we kind of get into March, what you've wanted to do to Cameron and the game day experience, and even our own interactions, post game. How have you felt that's gone? What have you tried to change? What have you liked?
You know what? It's funny because it's one of those things you always have ideas when you're going to be a head coach, and playing to your personality and being true to yourself. But it's also different once you get into it. You just have a much deeper feel and level of understanding for things. And one of the passions that my wife and I have had, we have 3 small kids, and being involved in the children's hospital has been something that's been an honor for us. My wife has done an amazing job. You'll see her at every halftime. She's out there with raising money, shooting a free throw, and it's a great way to put pressure on former players. By the way, they get so nervous coming back, and they always make excuses. I haven't shot in a long time, and
Right.
but that's been a great thing. And then other than that, just being true to myself and following my instincts and interactions and being honest and open.
Jon Scheyer joining us, head coach, Duke basketball here on the OG. Gilio out today. He'll be back on Monday. So I've wanted to ask this question a couple times, but I don't want to get in the way of people who actually have to write stuff. It seems like every game you're highlighting a player who stepped up, right? And I'm thinking to myself, Jon's like cycling through dudes in the middle of a game. Like it's a constant thing. How much of this is what you want to do? How much of it is the group? How much of it was because you had no choice because of some early injuries to Dariq Whitehead and Derek Lively?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a credit to the players that we have, where it hasn't been clear separation for a majority of the year. On the other hand, we have been able to get a much better rotation, and the more stability, where guys know when they're playing and when they're getting in, the better it is. And we've been playing more of an 8-man rotation, which has been good.
Mm-hmm.
Other guys still have to be ready, and honestly, it's been that way for our team. Every game, somebody new is stepping up, and so as a coach, it's great, but it also makes it where you have decisions down the stretch. We've closed with different lineups,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little bit different than we've done in the past, and maybe different how we do it going forward.
And that's what I was curious about, in the Louisville game, right? Grandison is the guy who's going to be talked about because he hit a bunch of big shots early on to get you back in the game. I've been at games where Ryan Young is the one who's pulling down a key rebound, putting his body out there, and he kind of is a difference maker sometimes. It's Proctor. You get the gist. You know this. It's always some new guy. And how have the players, because you're trying to balance freshmen with expectations. You're trying to balance transfers who have come in and understand their role. So how have you felt that this team has kind of processed that? No pouting, no like, hey, man, I got to get my minutes at the stretch. How have you balanced that? How have they balanced that?
They've done a great job. Obviously, all of them want to have great individual success, and I wouldn't want them here if they didn't feel that way. But also, I think the only way to handle it is being transparent, open, and honest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coaching to win, and going to play the guys that are doing what we ask and help us do that to the highest level that we can. And you already mentioned it, but with our guys, we have Ryan Young is very different than Derek Lively, right? And Derek's potential and who he's going to be as a pro and all those things is different than who he is now. But for Derek, on the defensive end, he's a game changer. Ryan has come up. He's been one of the best offensive rebounders in the country, let alone our league. And so in different situations, Ryan can make some plays that Derek may not, and vice versa. Derek obviously has tools that Ryan doesn't. I could go down the list, complimenting each other, the other guys on the floor, something you have to take into consideration. But they've been team players and have all stepped up when needed.
Jon Scheyer joining us, head coach Duke basketball here on the OG. Giglio out today. He'll be back on Monday. All right, so I am curious. This kind of the light bulb went on for me when Wake Forest came through, and Steve Forbes, head coach at Wake Forest, was talking about their own issues and going through some tough games and not winning some of those tough games, but also it was almost like you have to push back the timeline and when a team becomes the team, right? And we're so caught up in net. We're so caught up in Ken Palm, things that happen in November. And you know this. The team that you guys were in November is not the team you're now. So in kind of like a bigger philosophical thing, if coaches understand this, should we understand this when we're talking about your teams, when we're still kind of obsessing over wins and losses that occurred what feels like 10 years ago in the lifetime of a program?
Yeah, it's actually a great point because we're watching back our Virginia Tech game, getting ready for playing them tomorrow, and I couldn't believe how different we were. We were so different as a team. The starting lineup, the rotations. Virginia Tech, by the way, is so different, right? And so, there's a line that I heard that has really stuck with me, especially for our team this season. I can't remember who told me, so I apologize.
Okay.
I'm not plagiarizing here, but
Right.
it's I think Brad Stevens is the one that said it. But analytics can tell us what we've done; they can't tell us what we can do. And so, to your point about Ken Palm, net, whatever that is, that tells us what we've done, maybe, but it's not. It can't tell us what we're capable of and what we can do. And that's been, our messaging to our team.
Which gets to a larger point about the ACC. I know Jeff Capel talked about it earlier this week at Pitt. Steve Forbes, we talked to him earlier this week, and he also spoke up on this. But you're new. How do you balance? I'm trying to get established here at Duke as we began this conversation, kind of put a stamp on what you want to do with this program. Do you feel like you're in a place now where you can say, "Hey, look, it's time to advocate for the league in the same way that Kay would advocate for the league"?
Well, I'm new as a head coach, but I've been in the league now. There's 17 years ago I came
Don't
into the league.
don't remind me. Don't remind
So
me how old
yeah,
we
I'm
all
making
are,
sure
John. Okay.
exactly. So for me, seeing I have a great feel for where the league has been and where it's gone over the last 17 years, and there's no doubt in my mind the ACC doesn't get the respect it deserves. That doesn't mean that I'm saying we have the. I'm not disrespecting any other league when I say that.
Sure.
That's true, and I have questions that I don't understand when you look at the net, Ken Palm, whatever it may be. One of the things on my plate, I'm taking a deep dive this summer to understand scheduling, non-conference. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But take us, for example. Our two losses in the non-conference were Purdue and Kansas. And so we beat some really good teams. I think we showed we're a really good team in the non-conference, and the difference of beating Kansas or not, it's one possession game late in that game.
Right.
Do beat us pretty good. But for us, we get beat by other good teams. They're good. They're not. And so we don't get the credit of losing to Wake Forest, and they don't get the credit of beating us. And I could go down. I could spend a lot of time on this because it is frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's not about being a first-time head coach where I don't feel I can't speak up on it.
Jon Scheyer joining us, head coach Duke basketball here on the OG. All right, so when you do that deep dive on net, can you explain it like we're five when you finally figure it
I
out?
will absolutely explain it looking back because it's we've had times where we've won games by a significant margin
Mm-hmm.
and we've gone down in the net, right? And we've also won games where we go up a lot and then it's all over the place.
So we'll close on this, and Jon Scheyer, Duke head basketball coach, joining us here on the OG. I'm Joe Ovies. Giglio will be back on Monday. So we got just over a week left in this season, and with transfer portals and freshmen, how quickly did your group get it? This is ACC basketball. It's a little bit different. The stakes are different, and when you go to Greensboro, everybody's in a desperation mode. I know Kay talked about this last year a lot when teams would come in desperate for the NCAA tournament. They needed to win against Duke to help them out. When did the kind of light bulb go on for this team as we're now in the final stretch of the regular season?
It didn't happen probably as quickly as I would have liked
Mm-hmm.
or that our team would have liked. We had some eye-opening games.
Miami?
But
Is Miami that eye-opening game?
Well, you know what? I won't say I think it was Wake Forest and NC State
Okay.
early on playing on the road. And then you feel like, all right, we've gone there. We've gone over a hump. And then you play Carolina, and the 2 days later you lose at Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, we're not where we think we should be. And so not overreacting to that, responding. And really since that moment, I think our confidence has grown in a big way. We feel I can see our guys. It's one thing for me to feel it, but our guys, they feel very confident and they believe in each other and not overlooking anybody either. We know tomorrow night will be a tough game, and we're ready for a strong end to the season here.
That's why I was curious about the Miami game because, you've had a couple of Saturday to Monday turnarounds, as you mentioned. Right. You had that the Miami game was a part of that. So I was curious with these Saturday, Monday turnarounds, and regardless of what people might think about Syracuse or Louisville coming into the building this past Monday, turnovers are down, ball's getting distributed a little bit more. I mean, was there, your conversation, the players having a conversation, how'd that play out to kind of get more consistency over the last two games?
No question. I mean, we've learned. We went the first time was Miami, and then at Virginia Tech, and we lose a tight one.
Right.
Then it's Carolina, and we lose to Miami. And for us in the huddle, we just kept talking about, let's show what we've learned. Show what we have learned. And our guys, they had, after that game, after that Miami game, they had almost an hour and a half players-only meeting. I don't know what was said in it, but I know they wouldn't have been in there if it wasn't legit and if they didn't feel it and mean it. And that's what it comes down to. I've been on part of teams that coaches try to do everything they can. If the players aren't taking the ownership, you're going to have a hard time. And I'm lucky to have a group that cares, that has owned it. And it's a reason we're in the position we are to make a strong push here and be right in the mix.
Jon Scheyer, Duke head basketball coach, appreciate the time. That your game will be the fourth game that I will be attending on Saturday. Because State, Carolina, the Hurricanes are playing, and then you. Luke DeCock and I, the News and Observer, we're going to try to land the quad. All four games in one day. So
you better look alive, man. Don't be, yeah.
I got my Cuban coffee. I got my Cuban coffee ready to go.
Saturday night. Let's go.
Thanks, Jon.
All right, thanks.